Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a blue and furry bovine. Joining me on the panel today are some of your favorites, including Brian and Derek and Mini Socks and Broncola. I wanted to start out the program actually by sharing a screen with everybody. I don't do this too often, but I'm getting a little bit better at it anyway. And I go like this and like this. All right, now can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's like Spike Lee.
Yeah, there's nothing better in my mind than watching people who are from New York take it up the ass.
Wow.
And yesterday's game was really quite a game.
What happened? Because I don't care what happened.
Well, the Hawks were playing at New York, and of course, all the league hype is with the Knicks, as you would expect it to be, being, you know, the big market that it is. Everybody was thrilled that the Knicks were back in the playoffs, and, you know, the game went the way the game went, and it was a fourth quarter that went back and forth and back and forth. Both teams hitting three-point shots. I mean, it really was an exciting game. And I say that knowing full well that most of these first-round play-in type, you know, or the first parts of the best of fives are really, it's pretty much what you'd expect it to be. This game was actually allowed to be played more physically by both teams and was very fairly judged by the officials, which surprised me because I think everybody thought that it was just going to be handed over to the Knicks. And it came down to a final possession. The Knicks were ahead 105-104. And Trae Young, basically, with 9.8 seconds left, just put on just an incredible dribbling display to get himself open in the lane, and he made the shot, leaving the Knicks 0.9 seconds left, okay? This is a picture of Spike Lee right after Trae Young dealt all over them, okay?
Nice hat.
Huh?
Nice hat.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was dancing around, jumping around the whole game. He thought for sure the Knicks were going to win. And maybe it's just because I've been doing this for 16 years now, and I'm so used to seeing Cleveland getting shit on by the national media that then in their finest hour, the New York Knicks lost. And the reason, and I'll take this, I mean, it's not that Spike Lee, I mean, at one time, he maybe did one good movie, you know, Do the Right Thing. And then after that, it was, you know, nothing for me anyway. At any rate, let me unshare this. Stop screen.
I thought you were going to show the play or something, but you just showed a photo.
Yeah, the play itself, try to fidget with the player and get it timed just right. I mean, just look up the final, you know, the final 9.8 seconds of the game. But the beauty of it all was the last play that the Knicks drew up. I mean, you would think that any team that would make it to the playoffs, I'm good, I have Tony here, and this will help. Tony, you're going to be of great assistance to me here.
Where?
Hi. You got 0.9 seconds. Every team's got a trigger play. They've got a play where you pass the ball in. At 0.9 seconds, there's enough time to catch and shoot. And you have an inbounds play prepared. Yeah. Well, everyone except Tom fucking Thibodeau.
Yep.
And, you know, and Tony, you'd be the perfect one to talk about this because this has been the downfall, besides his own bellicose attitude toward management, his defense first and offense second mentality. Did you watch the game, Tony?
I did, yes.
Did it look eerily familiar to you?
I was having horrible flashbacks of Jimmy Butler not being open, so he threw the ball to Jeff fucking Teague for a game winning. It's when Thibodeau doesn't have his superstar, which in this case would be Julius Randle, open, he panics. And RJ Barrett is a fine player, but not somebody I want taking a shot at the end of the game. I would have rather trusted Derrick Rose to take the shot even at his elderly stage of his career.
Well, the thing that I couldn't figure out, and I watched the play over and over again, and there was no, what's the word I'm looking for? Urgency.
No.
I mean, you took a look at that inbounds play where who was cutting where, who was putting bodies on bodies to free open whom, and it was like slow motion. I mean, it was like there's no urgency, and the guys who got them to where they were Ellis Burks and Derrick Rose.
Alec Burks, not Ellis.
Oh, sorry. Ellis used to play
DA.
for the Indians. He used to be with the Indians and Red Sox. That's right. Alex Burks, sorry.
He
He was running like Ellis
2000.
Burks.
No, he was on fire, man. He was on fire, and he was single-handedly doing the number while Trae Young was doing his number in the fourth. Burks was doing his job in the fourth, and Derrick Rose, who they had to take in and out, because, I mean, he can only play X number of minutes, but he was really good in the game. And when it comes to that last play, to me, the game was lost earlier on because of their alleged MVP. Julius Randle not only had a bad game, he finished off the final 2 minutes of the game basically throwing up a brick that just slammed off the backboard. And, he was taking hero shots on the floor. And it's like, you're not LeBron. You're not even Devin Booker. I don't know what you are. You had a great year, but no, thank you. And that's what led to the selfish play that comes down finally with complete mass confusion. So, Stephen A. Smith, you can talk about it. Spike Lee, you can talk about it all you want. When all is said and done, you're going to be disappointed time and time again with Tom Thibodeau because he's always good enough to make the playoffs, but he's a Budenholzer is what he is. A guy who can get you to a certain point, but never gets over the hump.
Sort of
And
like a Schottenheimer, only not as funny.
Well, by the time that the players, after 3-4 years of having to listen to his incessant, monotonous defensive lectures, realize that the offense isn't able to get the job done at the clutch moment against the best teams in the league. I don't give a shit that the Knicks were 39-31 or whatever the fuck they were. I don't really give a fuck. I mean, it all starts in the playoffs. That's the second season is really where everyone goes at it. And
they played a whale of a defensive game. Miami, Jesus, Atlanta couldn't hit the broadside of a fucking barn from three. I mean, they were making a couple shots, but not to the extreme great potential they've been doing all season, and they still couldn't pull it out.
No, and
the Knicks are not long for the playoffs.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I mean, it's not that the Hawks are a holy terror, to be sure. But be that as it may, it's just another disappointment in a resume of disappointments. And I just remember all kinds of fun things, I don't know. When did where did Thibodeau go after the Wolves, Tony?
ESPN. He was a television analyst.
All right. Well, so this is his second shot at. This is his first shot at redemption, and this is the first thing that he does. Very unprepared. So, but rarely can I say that an NBA game was that exciting to me. I love this article probably more than any other today Adam Silver announces business entity NBA Africa, backed by former star players. NBA Africa will conduct the league's business endeavors in Africa, including the new Basketball Africa League. Investors include 2 Nigerian swindled businessmen, as well as former NBA greats and swindled Dikembe Mutombo and Grant Hill. The NBA is going to help fund it like they do the WNBA. Now, I don't know about you. I don't think it's a real good idea. You know, Basketball Africa League, man, they gave it a great shot, but they just ended up falling on their shield. I don't really know what I think about this, except Las Vegas can't get an NBA franchise, but Africa can get a league.
So are we going to have teams like the Congolese Spear Chuckers?
No, don't go there.
Oh my gosh.
Don't go
We're
there.
gonna see more Bismack fucking Biombos.
No, this is not. I guess the NBA has some money to throw
Senegalese
around.
warlords.
Now, I don't know how much talent has actually come out of Africa. I mean, I know Dikembe Mutombo did, and
Since Manute Bol.
Manute Bol, right? I mean, but I'm really hard pressed to think of other African,
Mutombo
basketball
was
players.
probably one of the best.
You're looking at the Bismack
Honestly.
Biombos, the Gorgie Jangs, the
Oh, Hakeem Olajuwon. He was African.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I really don't know. It sounds like it. I don't know, but it just seems funny to me that the NBA, it's just like the WNBA. These things that don't make
The shortest guy on the Sudanese team is 6'10".
Well, this is again more of league business. This is more about diversity and spreading the word of the NBA throughout the world. And
I'm pretty sure Kevin Bacon made a movie about this.
Where he went to scout somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The air up there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will remember that. Thank God.
Not even Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, but I just thought it was really interesting that there are teams in the NBA cities that have teams that shouldn't for long, and Las Vegas is just waiting and salivating.
Don't worry,
And-
the Wolves will be hitting there soon now that Alex Rodriguez is taking over.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know what but I don't know. NBA Africa. We'll see how long that one actually lasts.
I do want to give a little hat tip to our old buddy DG in Memphis. Those fucking Grizzlies, man, they're peaking at the right time. Now, granted,
Yeah.
Utah's injured. The Donovan, I almost said Donovan McNabb. Donovan Mitchell's story is a little bit out
Peoples
there.
Jones.
Well, Donovan Mitchell, I mean, he's pissed off, man. He
Yeah.
said he's supposed to play in game one, and they held him back.
Yeah,
I tell you what, though,
they fucking couldn't shoot to save their souls.
John Morant absolutely is living up to his expectations. He's a great player. I had my fingers crossed that the Cavs were going to be able to somehow get a top pick and snag him. Because if you remember, Zion was like obviously the sure number one. Then behind them, it was kind of like, okay, RJ, you're going to take RJ, you're going to take Ja. And John Morant, even though he came from a lower level school, he you could tell he was going to be this good, but he's starting to really step into superstar level pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, the fact that you have some young playmakers, and it's like the last show that I did, a guy was coming after me basically because I was not so high on Colin Sexton. It's not that I'm down on Colin Sexton, but he has limitations. Being 6'1", not being a particularly good defensive player, being a good scorer, but also a volume shooter. My point of view with Colin Sexton is that he'll leave the Cavaliers because he'll be free to in a couple of years, And when that day comes, he will get signed to a nice contract with the team, and make really good money. But the guys who are really special, who are 6'1" or 6'2" or 6'3" are point guards. And I think Darius Garland is a better professional talent than Colin Sexton is. And Ja Morant, it's a very similar kind of thing. It takes them about a year or two to really get acclimated to the NBA pace and to the way the game's played. But once they get a hang of it and they put in their work, and watching Trae Young play, it was really, really wonderful down the stretch. He forced and coaxed fouls out of the defense because of his body control, made the big shot, but at no time did I feel that he was hogging the ball. Colin Sexton, on the other hand, makes me feel as if he's a ball hog. That the only time that anything's really going to happen is when the ball's in his hands and he dribbles too much time off the clock. Darius Garland, on the other hand, is a guy who can actually make other players around him look better. Now they just need better players to put around. They need
to defend Sexton a little bit. I don't disagree with you. I think Garland and Young and all these other guys are a lot better than Sexton. But if I were him and knowing my options are Cedi Osman, Jared Allen, Dean Wade, compared to like Bojan Bogdanovic, Kevin Huerter, Danilo Gallinari, I'm probably going to ball hog the fucking ball.
Well, it all comes down to a total lack of belief and lack of faith, as far as the players don't have trust in one another. Yeah. And the sad part of it is that the Cavaliers don't even have a legitimate 3-4. Kevin Love should get out of the game and just take his money. I would let him go. I'd pay him and let him go. He's become a distraction. He's become a cancer on the team, and I don't give a shit about him. His time is done.
Hey, Moo, I see Best Impact asked this question. But yeah, I was going to ask it too. What did you think about LaMelo Ball this year?
To tell you the truth, I'm one of these people that once I see the reviews of Sex and the City 2, I don't bother to see the movie.
I thought he was actually pretty good given the fact that who his dad is and all the hype around him and the name. I actually thought he played pretty all right. If you didn't know the Ball family and you didn't watch Ball in the Family and all that, you'd go, hey, he was a pretty good player. But because of his name, I feel like that's had a really negative impact on him.
Well, I think that
he was the second best rookie for sure.
Yeah. There's promise there, and we'll see. He's very young. And again, like we said, to physically mature and get used to the physicality of the league. The thing that's interesting about Sexton is that he is a strong young man. And it isn't that he is overmatched in terms of having creativity with the ball, getting his shot off, and all of that stuff. But you cannot pair two 6'1" players on an NBA court today and give up the explosiveness, the length, and you can't also put Cedi Osman out or Stevens or all the people they've tried at the 3, Dylan Windler, who can't stay healthy. If to have a point guard who distributes the ball, he has to distribute the ball to somebody. The Cavaliers in the draft need to find a 3 and a 4 in the worst kind of way, and they're only going to find one because they ain't going to get 2 players out of this whole thing. Kevin Love is eating up a roster spot with $60 million they owe him and is doing no good for the team whatsoever. And Jared Allen, was playing hurt at the end of the year, something that a lot of people don't know. But he's at only 215 pounds. The question about Jared Allen as he comes up to his big payday is how durable can he be when he's playing against guys who are, 50 pounds heavier than he is. The other thing is, can he extend his range? Because more and more, you take a look at these playoffs, who are the big men? It's not like there are Patrick Ewings anymore or Hakeem Olajuwons. The big men can be guys like Antetokounmpo. I mean, it can be a guard, it can be a forward,
Luka Doncic, who can back you down and fucking rail him in from three, from the logo, for fuck's sake.
You need somebody who can spread the defense, and that means you got to have height, you got to have speed, and you just have to find players that fit that mold. The Cavaliers keep bringing these guys up who are like 6'5" and expecting them to play the three. I mean, my God, at 6'5", they're not quick enough to stay with the 6'10" guys like Simmons, and the Cavaliers have a big dead end in front of them, is what it amounts to. They can't find the talent that they need, and really, Sexton is far better off coming off the bench. And I know the guy who was upset with me, Sean Woodland, he was disagreeing with me vehemently. And I just want to say that Colin Sexton will have an opportunity when it's time to leave Cleveland. And I make this eminently clear. He can settle for the money or he can settle for the team. There ain't no fucking contender that is going to put his 6'1" ass on the court as a starting shooting guard. They will bring him off the bench as an instant offense kind of guy. But there's no way in your primary rotation that you can afford to have one guy on the floor who's going to be constantly pick and rolled into oblivion. So he can either accept a role as a sixth man with a contending team, and we're talking about, a top 6 team in the NBA, or he can do what most of these guys do, which is find a team in the bottom third of the league who, hey, he's young and he scores a lot of points and he's fun to watch. He can put the ball through the hoop, and we're never going to win. He's never going to win. Oh-da-do-da-day. That's where he's going to end up, at a place like Orlando. He's going to end up at a place where he can score a lot of points, like Minnesota.
Yep.
I mean, and good for him. If he can get 100 million plus, good for him. That's the way it works. But don't tell me that he is, look at all the teams that are in the playoffs. If you think Colin Sexton fits, he's a guy who's going to keep you in the game offensively while your second unit is on the floor. That's what he does. But he ain't going to be out on the floor, starting. No.
If you named every team in the playoffs right now, Colin Sexton's maybe a number 3 at best.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but he'll have that decision. He's going to make a lot of money. And I don't begrudge him the money. The way the NBA is set up, that's the way it works. Cavaliers just don't have anything to offer these young men. And I don't want to hear about 5-year rebuilds in the NBA. I don't want to hear about that. I mean, that is one of the greatest misnomers that I've ever heard in my life. Teams that literally rebuild over a 5-year period, tell me, who are they? You got a bunch of 500 teams.
It didn't take it. Well, back in the 80s, it didn't take the Cavs 5 years to rebuild. I mean, they did it in like 2 drafts.
If you're in a major market, you can spend money left and right and bring in talent when it's free agency time. When you're in Minneapolis or in Cleveland or in Sacramento or in Orlando, or you're in wherever you are. Somebody has to be better than somebody else. And the Cavaliers lost 18 of their last 21. That made them one of the worst teams in the league.
Your only option of that is Phoenix, but they had Devin Booker when they bottomed out. They got DeAndre Ayton, and they're in Phoenix, so they were able to get Chris Paul. They were able to get Jay Crowder. They were able to get Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson.
It ain't enough to go that far in the playoffs. It'll get you to the playoffs because there's so many bad teams. I mean, they're letting
They'll
how
beat the
many
Lakers,
teams?
no doubt. They'll beat the Lakers.
Yeah, 7, 8. You're talking about 7, 8 teams that get into the playoffs, and
Well, and the
that's-
Suns,
yeah.
talking about the Suns, this is the first time they won 50 games since the little scrawny kid that his wife had a kid by another player. Nash.
Oh.
Steve Nash.
Steve Nash, yeah.
This is the first time they've won 50 games since Steve Nash was on the team.
I mean, it's funny. I was looking at how the Indians managed to lose 2 out of 3 to the Twins, and it was comical. Meanwhile, the White Sox were losing every game to the Yankees, and it's like you realize that if the AL Central is playing one another, they'll beat one another because they're all horrible teams. But when they have to actually go out and play real baseball teams, they get slaughtered. And that's the way the NBA is, too. If the Cavaliers only won 21 games this year, think of how many fucking teams beat them. I mean, that's like 60 games.
Well,
I mean, that they lost.
Hell, Deshaun Watson beat him in lawsuits.
Yeah, I mean, I really have no clue as to why people can't do the simple math and say there's going to be those squashed on the bottom who lose to virtually everybody, and that's why you have all these teams that are waffling around 500 because they don't do anything but beat the bottom feeders, and when they get out on the floor against good teams, they lose.
The Cavs don't have anybody who's going to attract people to come play with them. I mean, you're not going to come to play with Kevin Love, obviously, because of how he's been in his career. And these 2 young guys with Sexton and Garland, nobody's going to come to play with them because they're basically learning on the fly here, trying to become stars. So it's not like the LeBron days where you could just wave your hand and have 5 guys fall in your lap. So the rebuilding process it's hard, but it shouldn't be this hard because they've also capped themselves, I feel like.
Well, I think Dan Gilbert, whether he's had a stroke or not had a stroke, is one of the hardest people in the world to work for. And what you're going to see happen in Cleveland, and if Sean, if you're watching, so you're not surprised, JB Bickerstaff will get 1 more year, if that. If they come out and they're flat again and they start losing their, 10 out of their first 15 games, he'll be fired. And so will Kobe Altman, the general manager, because he fires general managers, changes them around like he does his underwear, or whoever is changing his underwear these days. I don't really like Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert spent a lot of money. Without LeBron James, Dan Gilbert can't have a winning basketball team. He is willing to spend money, but he meddles incessantly. And you're not going to have a front office. And the front office has actually done a decent job. If you take a look at who they drafted, I mean, you look at guys like Garland and Sexton, and they got some decent guys. And Okoro, who really is a defensive-minded 2, is not a 3, and why they were playing him at the 3, God only knows. But somebody in the front office or the owner is meddling, and the team's not good enough. Yeah.
When LeBron retires, do you think there's any chance he attempts to buy the Cavs, given his history with them?
I think that there's a lot of talk about that. A lot of it has to do, with the health of Dan Gilbert and, whether he does actually try to transition his 23-year-old son, God help the world, if that happens. That's the Randy Lerner scenario in all of this. But I don't know. I mean, it's thankless to be in a mid-sized market and lose your superstar. And let's be, Kevin Love is a good basketball player, was a good basketball player. And since he left Minnesota, there have been no good news, has there, Tony?
No, hasn't. There's been a lot of hype with Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell and Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Edwards. And
right.
We've seen nothing come to fruition yet.
Nothing tangible. And
now the latest hype is, Alex Rodriguez is buying the team. It's a new day. Yeah, the movie is that they're packed up and headed to fucking Las Vegas or Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, where would you rather be if you were a new owner who just put in that kind of money to purchase a team?
Yep.
And again, I'm not bad mouthing the Timberwolves. Fans are taking a bad beating in these mid-sized markets, and there's no reason to take a shot at them. But this is what's happening all over the league, and you lose your one real good player, and or the reason that people would come there, and you'll see what I mean. David Griffin, for all of his self-proclamation, quite honestly, about being the greatest general manager who ever lived, well, you got your guy, you got the number one pick in the draft, you got him. Well, what did it do for you? What has it done for you so far? It's just gotten you another year closer to him leaving, which is exactly what will happen. And that's going to be just in time for when LeBron hangs him up and the Lakers are like salivating that they can get their hands on him. That's all. That's all that is. So, and once they lose a guy who's a 27-point, scorer, and Zion goes west, they're not going to be able to replace that with anything, and they'll be worse off than they were before him because the fans will be let down, and they'll see how shitty a product they're putting on the court. They won't show up. What happened in Cleveland?
Sidebar from that, you mentioned LeBron hanging it up. I almost think, and this might be a little hot take-ish, we might be seeing LeBron James's last year in the league.
I don't.
Injury season. They're probably going to be knocked out in the first round by the Suns. How much more does LeBron want to do this shit? You know what I mean?
How old's his son? Because I think that's a big part.
16. He's only 16. I mean,
okay, yeah. So he's got a while.
He's going to stay in Los Angeles because, I mean, look.
Yeah.
LeBron had a bad leg this year. This is the first injury that ever took him out of 20-plus games in his career. Mm-hmm. And he's got mileage on him, but he still is, when confronted with the dilemma of the play-in game, he hits the off-balance 34-foot three that propels them into the playoffs. I would not bet against LeBron James. And I don't think that LeBron James can go anywhere else where his business interests are served better than with the Lakers. They shelled out the money. They're going to pay the money. And what they get is what they get. And I kept telling people in Cleveland, you got the best of LeBron James. You cannot complain about LeBron James leaving Cleveland. It was hard the first time, but the second time it wasn't hard to figure out at all. And realistically, the first time, it was just kind of a tasteless way in which it was done. But other than that, he was tampered with by Pat Riley. Other than that, he went someplace where he won himself some championships. But he came back and won us one. So, quit your bitching. You got to see, for all those years, the best player who's ever lived. And you're able to see the most remarkable plays and improbable endings that you'll ever see in Cleveland. So be happy with that. And as far as getting better, nobody's getting better in the NBA except for big market teams. Nobody.
Right.
There are names. We want to see Devin Booker play, we want to see Donovan Mitchell play the Utah Jazz. Obviously, I'm so sure. We want to see Ja Morant play. We want to see, all these guys from the lesser televised teams play because we didn't get to see him much during the regular year because we were so busy seeing the Lakers. And the Lakers really aren't all that great.
Right.
Anthony Davis looked positively horrible in his opener. Horrible.
Andre Drummond was just completely a total non-factor.
Well, he is a non-factor because the games passed him by. having a 7-foot guy, or a 6'11" guy in his case, who has no shooting range. I mean, I hate to say this, and people are going to say, "Oh, you're full of shit," but Shaq wouldn't be shit in the league right now. He wouldn't be shit. He wouldn't haul that fat ass up and down the floor fast enough.
No.
It's a different game.
No.
You know.
Well, it is. Are we done with the NBA?
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
Nothing. Something.
Did you watch? Did you watch Building the Browns?
Yes, I did. I thought that was an excellent program.
I was so happy. I sat on the couch. I got home and pulled up YouTube, and the first video that came up was Building the Browns, and I thought it was the one from the draft because I'm like, why is this getting recommended to me again? I thought, oh my gosh, there's a new one.
It's new content. Yeah.
I don't know why, but those, I'm telling you, every time I see a new episode out, there's very few things that get me that excited to where as soon as I see it, you gotta watch it.
So
No,
that's
they are
your
good
fix.
programs. They are good
That's
programs.
your fix because it's not really commentary, it's fandom. And it's an opportunity to get a closer look at some of the people that you're going to be seeing on the field and stories developing about who they are and how they might fit into this cog, what cog they'll be in the big machine. So there's a lot to
Well,
look
and they
forward
also
to.
focus on people that are behind the scenes that you
Yeah.
will never, ever, ever otherwise see unless you work inside the building.
Yeah, I mean, that's fandom all the way. And
seeing is it Hudson or Houston, the tackle? I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. I think it's Hudson,
Hudson.
right? Hudson. Seeing him getting work one-on-one with Callahan. Oh my
yeah.
gosh! I mean, he looks very impressive, and you can tell just some of the little things and how he's really trying to learn. I think he could turn out to be pretty special.
yeah, I think that the amount of coaching and the environment of accepting coaching and how the players tell the other players to accept the coaching is just paramount. It's paramount. And and this whole OTA thing between the NFLPA and the owners, I mean, honestly, you got to in some form do OTAs. You have to. If you want to get better, I think that I was reading that there were, including the Browns' primary competitors, 9 teams that were doing OTAs, and the Browns weren't one of them. And if you want to keep up with the Joneses, the people who are at the top, I mean, you've got to micromanage a thing down so that you're even smoother and less mistake prone than you were a year ago.
Did you see they came to an agreement on something there for the Browns?
Well, I heard that the players were talking with the owners about a thing like that. What did they finally come up with?
I don't know what they finally came up with, but I do know they did come up with something, and they are going to do it in some way. Let me see if I can look it up and find something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I think the fact that J.C. Treader is such a major figure in the NFLPA, that there has to be safety involved and all of that, but at the same time, you can't fall behind the curve. Last year was excessive. And you need to get these new defensive pieces of the puzzle together and communicating and learning a system because we know how quickly the season starts.
I mean, no one's going to disagree with you there. I mean, if they've got a free agent coming in Johnson, who's going to supposedly call the defensive signals like he did with the Rams last year, well, then that's pretty obvious. They have to get together. We'll see what happens. But, we also don't want guys getting hurt. So it's like that dilemma. Do you want guys getting hurt by extra practicing, or do you want to not practice and not know what you're doing?
It sounds... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
go ahead, please.
It sounds stupid to say because so many people think walkthroughs aren't important. But I think right now where the Browns are at from a mental standpoint with all these new guys, you got guys who are going to be important pieces coming back from injuries like a Delpit. They need to almost just get in position. Like, let's just put the puzzle out, see kind of how it looks, and start to put the pieces together that way. Like, they don't need to start implementing stuff right now, but they need to at least see, okay, how's this going to look? We're going to put you here. Okay, well, let's adjust that. I think that's the first step right now. Get the foundation laid on the field, not just like, on the whiteboard and X's and O's. They need to actually get them out on the field and see from that perspective.
Well, I mean, I can talk about all things athletic, and it starts with mental preparation. And if I'm going out, even at my stage of the game where my tennis game is like really diminished, I'm solely a doubles player, and I know I'm playing on Wednesday, and I know a guy who's playing against me is 14 years younger, has never had knee trouble in his life, and runs like a road runner. All right, and I know who I'm playing against. I do mental walkthroughs of how I want that game to progress, how, what I need to do strategically. The players right now don't have a clue about the pro game, and the speed of it is going to just literally slam them, so that the more mentally prepared they are, they have the speed, they don't have the knowledge. And if they can react by learning where they're supposed to be and things that they can't get caught doing, like looking in the backfield for a split second because things move so quickly in the NFL, you're going to diminish mistakes tremendously. And that's what these things are for, is it's no different than learning the playbook. Go ahead.
When you get in position like that, and you can look to your left and look to your right and know, okay, I know who I'm going to be surrounded by. I know where you're supposed to be, how you're lined up. Because this system that we're going to be running, even though it is Joe Woods' system, it's going to be different. It's going to be way different as far as the execution process. So even though you kind of had the playbook last year, I'm sure they had the playbook of what they're going to run, but you didn't actually get to see it on the field as hoped. So now they're going to have guys out there, and you're going to have guys like Greg Newsome, and you're going to say, okay, sometimes you're going to be lined up. You're going to have Troy Hill right next to you. Sometimes you're going to line up, and JOK is going to be near you, and he's going to be dropping back, covering zone over there. It's just those little mental stuff that when you actually get set and you're physically able to see where you're at, where guys are going to be, what their responsibility is, where your responsibility is, that's the communication stuff. And that's why I think John Johnson and Troy Hill, both coming from the same system and already having that little bit of communication down, I think it is going to be a bigger help than some people think.
Totally agree.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of players who were there last year, who managed to play again, who knows how much was in that playbook defensively that never got done, simply because we didn't have the bodies who were capable of doing it.
Well, this year we should now have, if Denzel Ward stays healthy, which is a big if, he should be able to follow the number one receiver on the other team. Whereas last year he couldn't do that. You couldn't, Denzel Ward had to sort of stay where he was positioned and then hope for the best. If that guy went in motion or did some other funky ass thing before the snap, just pray to God that Sendejo can catch up to him somewhere down the middle of the field. We were an abomination in the defensive backfield. We never ran dime coverages. I mean, stop me if I'm repeating myself, but there was probably a whole shitload of that playbook that they never used because they had to hide about 3 or 4 players on that team.
I've always said, if you can cover wide receivers with your defensive backs, you change the entire look of what happens on the field, because then other people are freed up to do other things. And if you want to blitz, or if you want to double down on one guy, it's easier to do knowing that there's somebody always going to be in the right place at the right time. It was such a mishmash last year of what we were forced to do that it was very hard to get an idea.
And there was a lot of disguising going on, and the disguising almost worked so well that we didn't know what the fuck we were doing too. So,
if you're trying to hide weaknesses, you're not very good. I mean, it's exactly a lot like a boxer. Who is the most dangerous fighter you can fight? And I know it's easy to say, well, Scout doesn't have any weaknesses. But everybody has some weaknesses, but if they're glaring, take a look at when Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman. I mean, George Foreman threw his punches wide, and Ali leaned back against the ropes and absorbed some punishment. But if you look at that fight, and I've watched the Ali Zaire fight with Foreman, and Ali came out in the first round and threw a bunch of straight right hand leads that just nailed Foreman in the first round and let him know right off the bat, I'm quicker than you are. My punch is straighter. It gets to its target sooner. Well, that enraged Foreman, and Foreman just started, swinging like a windmill, basically flailing away at him, and tired himself out. It's so much easier if your plan A is so strong, if you're a good defensive fighter, if you know how to parry punches, if you know how to get inside, if your footwork is correct, so you know how to cut off the ring, all of those things, you're so far ahead of the game. And really where it starts with the Browns, they didn't have anybody who was capable of covering the wide receivers. And if our cornerbacks can get that done, and then you have the safeties helping out, and if you're very convinced that Denzel Ward can stay with his man, you might want to bring a safety in on a blitz, because you're not, you have faith that he's going to be stride for stride with his guy. But we have no such sense this year of that.
The Browns defense this year is going to be a quarterback nightmare when it comes to trying to read where guys are going to be at. Because you have literally pretty much every position on the field opposite, not counting the defensive line, pretty much every position at linebacker, at safety, and at corner is just stacked full of guys who can do multiple different positions. So game one, when Patrick Mahomes is sitting back there, he's saying, okay, I know the Browns, I played them last year. They were horrible. Well, okay, this is going to be wide open. And then all of a sudden what happens when, Grant Delpit comes in on a blitz and like that, you just don't see those things. And the versatility was the key for this offseason. That was clear, but I think they already had some key pieces that they felt like they could build around when it came to building that versatility.
Well, a guy, like Anthony Schwartz, they're saying he has a high IQ and all this. That's all well and good. You can only throw so much at a rookie player. I'm a real believer that a guy like Anthony Schwartz is not going to make a massive impact in his first year with the Cleveland Browns. But if you can coach him within a few schemes where he can have meaningful touches on a football field to utilize what he does have, that'll make him better. And the thing is that most rookies are this way. A guy like Karamoa, he hopefully will evolve into a 3-down linebacker, but that may not be the case right away. Yeah, we just, he needs to learn the packages that he excels in best. And probably the best example I can give of this is what just happened with the Cleveland Indians and Tristan McKenzie. Tristan McKenzie, at 20 years of age, it was overwhelmed. And I looked at his minor league records, and he never had the kind of control problems that he had in the big leagues. But it's different. His delivery is deceptive, and in the minor leagues, he struck out a lot of hitters because the way his windup is, you lose sight of the ball, and a 90, 91 mile an hour fastball looks more like 94, and he can occasionally hump it up to 93, 94. But he doesn't have a reliable second pitch. The slider, the breaking ball is not, he's not a strike thrower. And he just totally lost the control of his fastball high. His release point vanished too much on the kid's mind. It was more than he could handle. And it's not at all unusual for young players if they have everything thrown at them. I was really shocked that the Indians brought him up as the 5th starter, because honestly, I never saw he's not physically mature. He was flustered. on a number of occasions. He didn't have real command on the mound, and he never looked like he belonged at the major league level. He needs to get starts in the minor leagues, and they need to perfect his mechanics. And that's what it is at the pro level. It's like, let's work on these guys' mechanics, and these are the types of packages we're going to play them in. And once they prove that their mechanics are such that they can take on more, the more bodies you have, the better off you are, because you can plug them into the packages that they look best in. And the Browns have a lot more bodies right now that are capable of playing than what they had last year. We'll see who rises to the top. But, I'd love to see Karamoa do well in his rookie year. But, boy, it's such a snap judgment position. If your body weight leans the wrong way, you're going to get picked on.
That's what I'm trying to get through Steelers fans' heads. They think they're going to have this great run game after having such a horrible run game last year. It's like, dude, he's going to be good. I think he will be good. But for the love of God, give the kid some time. I mean, your offensive line sucks, and now you're replacing a few guys. You can't expect him day one just say, here you go, and take it for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns a game. It ain't happening. It's just annoying. You got to have patience with every rookie.
And, a lot of times, I remember when O.J. Simpson first came up with the Buffalo Bills, before the electric company was built. I mean, his rookie year, he averaged under 4 yards a carry. People don't remember that O.J. struggled in the beginning of his career because he didn't have Reggie McKenzie and the big offensive lineman that he ended up with in Buffalo. But once he finds the stride, once the chemistry is there between the O-line and the running back, and everybody knows what the other guy is gonna do, it becomes magic. And that's what the Browns are looking to accomplish in an offseason, is to get chemistry between these new defensive players who are on the field, and hope that the chemistry that they already have on offense will carry them through, and that the improvement will be on the defensive side. Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, O.J. Simpson, getting back to him, I just called up his stats. He came into the league in 1969, and he didn't average well over four yards a carry until 1973, when he averaged 6 yards a carry and ran 2,000 yards. So in 69, 3.9, 4.1, 4.1, 4.3. And then suddenly it goes up to 6 yards a carry. And then it stays 5.5, 5.2, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it was all down to his offensive line and his maturity.
Right. And having the ability to have patience. When you're a running back, if you have no patience because you're afraid you're going to get splattered and you just run for the first hole, if you don't have the ability to pause and wait for that hole to open because you know that the kick block's going to happen in front of you, you're not maxing out. That's what I mean. Nick Chubb could have been an immense failure with another team. We're looking for the first cut. Yeah.
So by this theory, Chubb should have his career year this year. He stays healthy. He's got an experienced offensive line in front of him, and he's going to be in the league for 3 years. He's going to know exactly where he's doing, where he's going, and we have better receivers around him now. So this should be. I reckon Chubb could get 2,000 yards this year.
Well,
go ahead.
Even Kareem Hunt's rookie year, that was so great. The Chiefs had plenty of other options to go to, and they had a competent offensive line. So it's not like they were just saying, here you go, Kareem, like, take over the team like the Steelers are thinking they're going to do with Najee. They don't even have – they have some receivers, but who's going to get them the ball? Yeah, sure, Ben. I got told that Big Ben carried the Pittsburgh Steelers – horrible run game to a great record. Well, yeah, how long did that last? Because I remember you doing pretty all right. You know, you squeaked out some games, was undefeated, and then it went downhill. You're looking at the same thing, but it's just going to be earlier. You're playing a tough schedule. You can't just rely on Big Ben to hit guys, 5-10 yards. It's not going to happen. You can't do it. And with an extra game this season, how do you
look what the
will
Browns
last?
did to the guy in his home park. I mean, in the playoffs. I mean, they picked him off repeatedly because he was trying to run out of the pocket and just flip it like he used to, and the touch wasn't there. His arm
And he
hasn't
does
been
not.
the same.
He does not look good. I saw some clips from camp. He does not look good. He looks weak. His arm looks weak.
If Claypool gets hurt, that team and that offense is freaking dead.
Yeah,
Claypool is the straw who stirs the drink. If he has any problems whatsoever, Steelers aren't going anywhere.
Let's touch on the elephant in the room. And I'm not talking about my gut.
I was gonna say, is this a fat joke?
Yeah,
I decided to turn the
I left
camera
that
on.
one
and fat
alone.
joke.
did anybody watch? Was it First Take this morning?
No, undisputed.
I was undisputed. My bad.
Yep, I know.
Julio Jones telling, was it Coward, Derek?
No,
Yeah,
it was.
what a way to break
Shannon
the news,
Sharp.
right?
Yeah, I don't watch those things normally, so if I
It
get it
was
wrong,
hilarious.
he's like, I'm done with Atlanta. Should the Browns trade for Julio Jones?
How
No.
old is Julio
21
Jones
million
right now?
in free
How
cap
old is
space.
He's 32.
32.
No.
I mean, at this
Yeah,
point,
so he's older than Beckham and Landry.
I
By
think it's
2
a
years.
culture thing too. I don't think he'd fit in.
I mean, I don't know from a culture perspective, but I
Yeah, I
mean,
don't-
he certainly knows that he's not going to get anywhere with Matt Ryan playing quarterback, and he knows that things are over in Atlanta. And he had asked for a trade earlier, and this is the way he forced their hand. They want a first-round pick. I don't see people giving up a first-round pick for a 32-year-old receiver in the NFL.
I heard it's down to a second now. Was the latest I heard.
Already?
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez. I mean,
I don't think Andrew Berry would even be interested. I'd be really shocked to see him. I mean, maybe a fourth-round pick we might give up for him, but I can't see him coming to Cleveland.
I think it's worth a call. I mean, it's kind of like the conversation about Aaron Rodgers. I'm not mad if Andrew Berry at least says, hey, what are you thinking? Like, that's not to say it's going to happen, but the reality is the whole OBJ situation does not have a final solution. We still have no clue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if Andrew Berry called and the Falcons said, I tell you what, if you did like a 3rd and a 5, and we can get a trade done there, and then the Browns turn around and then say, okay, Odell, we're going to go ahead and move you. We'll get a second or whatever. I mean, I could see that just based off of the OBJ situation would be the only thing.
What if Atlanta?
Okay, but then you also damage Jarvis Landry because that's his
I can't
brother.
see anything happening. Yeah.
It's the NFL.
look, there are things that
Back on
the
the phone,
Browns
get
need.
cancer.
The Browns need a wide receiver, but I'm more interested in seeing the Austin Hooper, who was the Austin Hooper before he came to Cleveland. Austin Hooper, where he can catch far more than 46 passes in a season for this team. And I think the quarterback will become more comfortable with him over time.
In the draft next year, there's good receivers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
a 21-year-old receiver, not a 32-year-old receiver. Let them go to the Patriots.
Well,
Or
the
maybe
problem
even
with
Steelers.
the problem with the Stefanski offense is it doesn't operate where you feature a single tight end.
No, it was
It's
always
done
two
by
tight ends in
committee.
Minnesota,
So you're going to have the total number of receptions for the entire group is going to be 80, 85, 90 receptions, but not an individual.
But the guy on the field, the tight end on the field, when you need that 6-yard completion, that's what you paid Austin Hooper for. That's not really. Harrison Bryant is a draft pick. Great. I'm good with it. And he may be up next. But you got to have the sure-handed tight end in this scheme where we run so many double tight end sets that he can catch that ball and get that 3rd and 6. And I didn't see him making nearly enough important drive continuation receptions last
And the
year.
latest,
Go ahead.
the latest in the David Njoku tree of information, he's now apparently happy with the organization again, and his role was the latest, which comes out every other month. So stay tuned
but I
for
mean,
the
it
next
means
one.
that he's not attracted any attention anywhere. Before we go, Derek, I wanted to ask you a question about, the people that we didn't pay, that the Browns didn't pay and let go. Have they all found homes?
The important ones. I mean, Carl Joseph is with the Raiders. I think that was he was one that I would have liked to seen back, but now in hindsight, no.
What about Sheldon Richardson?
He's with
no,
the Bengals.
No.
Oh.
Sheldon
Oh, no,
Richardson's
that's
not.
Ogun.
Larry
That's
Ogunjobi.
Ogunjobi.
Kevin Johnson's on the Titans. Terrence Mitchell's
Yep.
with the Texans. Joseph's with the Raiders. Kendall Lamb went to the Titans. Ogunjobi went to the Bengals. Taywan Taylor went to the Texans. Vincent Taylor went to the Texans. So did Tavier Thomas and Tay Davis.
Wow, Texans are going to be
And
awesome.
who else? Dontrell Hilliard to the Texans, right?
So
We don't have Hilliard signed with
So
them.
Sheldon Richardson still hasn't landed either.
Nope. Olivier Vernon's still a free agent. Claiborne's still a free agent. So
I
is
mean-
DJ Goodson and Sendejo.
Well, he ain't getting a job.
No, but you see what I'm saying. I mean, there are still people you could theoretically, for depth, bring back. It would be hard with Sheldon Richardson just because that was a bit of a slap in the face. But the fact again, if no team, wants David Njoku, then he's happy with the organization again.
Because they're paying him a check, yeah.
He's not a first run guaranteed possession receiver, and he's not a proven big time blocker. So he's
And
athletic
he's making
as all get
$6
out.
million a year.
Yeah,
He's making $6
athletic.
million this fucking season. So,
Very athletic
be
player,
a
but
backup.
never really put it together. Not in the way to make big money as a starting, out on the field all the time tight end kind of guy. And before I
from
get
where
out
he
of
was
here,
drafted, he's a bust, really. If he was drafted in the 5th round, all right. But where he was drafted, like end of the 1st, I mean,
Yeah.
he's a bust.
yeah, he hasn't lived up to the hype. Before I get out of here, because it's 3 after 7.
Let's move on.
Just what a feel-good story that Phil Mickelson won.
Fuck off, Phil Mickelson.
I know, Goofy Phil. There were moments when it looked like he might be flagging, and
What did Peter Alice say about that yesterday?
like when he hit it in the water, I was thinking of Peter Alice going something like, "Oh, Phil, you had this one in the bag, Phil, and instead you hit it in the water. Oh, you're going to live to regret the day you did this." And I know I'm sitting there watching this going, I wonder if he's going to come unraveled here. And then Koepka just fell apart. I mean,
Yep.
and Oosterhuis couldn't put anything together. It was almost like the stars were in alignment for Phil Mickelson to win. At 50 years of age, the oldest ever to win a major, that is historic and good for him. And I thought that it was, nobody would have expected it, and it's good for the game. And, you can't, just because you can hit a drive 350 yards or whatever, doesn't mean that a guy who, and one thing I'll say about Mickelson, he got his physical act together. He was looking paunchy and looking soft.
Yeah, that's a question.
Well, he had pretty bad back injuries, too.
Do they
He had
have a
bulging discs
rigorous?
and all kinds of stuff.
Do they have a rigorous drug testing program on the PGA?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. He had lost a lot of weight, and he was definitely swinging with a lot more reckless abandon than I had seen him in recent tournaments. Bob Dylan turned 80 today.
Bob Dylan's 80 years old.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
The only thing to come out of Minnesota other than Prince.
If the times are a changing, I don't remember what they were. Da, 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 da. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, I forget your
It ain't
name.
me, babe. Oh, no.
Wow. You know, and the Monkees will be having a farewell tour. Well, there was a permanent farewell tour for
There's
two
only
of them.
two of them left. Yeah.
Bye, Davy. Cheer up, Sleepy Jean. Dirt nap alert. Yeah, and the Monkees aren't Mickey Dolenz and Michael Nesmith. If you're calling that the Monkees, then, you know. I
They're
don't
like
know.
the original Milli Vanilli, really.
I'd rather see the real Monkees, and that would be at the San Diego Zoo. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to this edition of Warhead Radio. Yeah, we'll be back again on Friday.
Well, of course, we're going to throw our poo at him.
Yeah. We'll be back Friday. Talk more sports. Promise. Until next time. Hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.